The following is a very special news episode of the Danville Discussion.
Two Pittsburgh's Evil News Update.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Danville Discussion, a podcast about all things related to Phineas and Ferb and beyond. My name is Doerksen, and some of you may know me from my YouTube channel of the same name, home of some web series related to animation such as Caleb Reviews. If this is your first time listening, well, just look at the podcast title, The Danville Discussion. It should explain everything. It's a podcast in which I watch each episode of either Phineas and Ferb or Hamster and Gretel, and I look for all the stuff I can find, including cultural and in-universe references, some fun facts, even some of my favorite moments, anything like that, and then finally, in the end, I get to give each episode a roller coaster rating. But this time, I was supposed to do a Phineas and Ferb episode by the time I released my last episode with Hamster and Gretel, but at the last minute, I pretty much had to change some plans to devote a good amount of my time in talking about what's been happening recently in the Dwampyverse, and I actually have some news to go through, so if you're ready, then let's go ahead and get it all started. Before we begin, I gotta do my usual opening plug, so if you want to check out more episodes of the Danville Discussion, then log on to anchor.fm/Caleb-Doerksen, and it'll take you directly to the Danville Discussion website on Anchor. You can also share your feedback or ask some questions you may have about this news by emailing us at danvillediscussion@gmail.com with the words, The Danville Discussion News, in the subject line. Now, for the Dwampyverse news this week. This is going to be highly honorable. I can tell you so right now because never have I seen a new character or two new characters in Disney television animation history that are going to be a pair of true heroes. They're going to represent what it means to be a hero. And I know that we've gotten a lot of them in the past and even nowadays. Like, I've seen plenty of people look up to characters like, Kim Possible, or Scrooge McDuck, or the Pines Twins, or Anne Boone Choi, or Luz Noceda, or other characters that led their own quest, but this is unlike any of them. These two are gonna stand out from the rest of the Disney TVA gang. I know they will. They are a noble duo. They both have a massive good heart, and I think everybody will look up to them. It's a duo who have to succeed through many trials and tribulations, and they're pretty much going to take up the task. And these legendary characters, it is more than an honor for me to report about the future Disney television animation heroes. And their names are Phineas and Ferb! Yes, I had to introduce the news that way, folks! What I am talking about, of course, is that apparently, at the 2023 Television Critics Association press, Dan Povenmire has begun a new overall deal with Disney-branded television as his creative home, which includes a second season of Hamster and Gretel, some full live-action projects, which is a really strange entry in his career, and the biggest deal of it all, Phineas and Ferb will, in fact, return, not for another movie, not for an actual spin-off, not for another crossover, but with 40 all-new episodes split into 2 seasons. Now, I know what you're all thinking, like, are we surprised or are we not surprised? And I'm pretty much feeling the same as you, but the truth is, I'm actually both. On one hand, it is a shocker since I thought that either Candace Against the Universe would be the last major Phineas and Ferb project or there would be another movie or special in the future. But on the other hand, I'm not that surprised since the Candace movie was a huge hit on Disney Plus back in 2020, even causing that garbage Mulan remake to not stand a chance against it at all, and I assume it even motivated Dan and Swampy to try and make more of it. Besides, we're talking about one of, if not the biggest Disney television animation asset in their history. Plus the fact that so many shows this decade either have gotten or are getting revived for new audiences such as Animaniacs, Rugrats, Tiny Toons, The Proud Family, Beavis and Butthead, Clone High, Futurama, which is getting its third run, this time on Hulu, and there's also Ren and Stimpy, iCarly, even King of the Hill, as well as that live-action animation hybrid Fairly OddParents reboot that even I don't want to talk about. And those are just some of the shows getting brought back. So in the end, it's not that big of a shock that Phineas and Ferb will be coming back in some form in the future. And yet here we are now, where news about this was spreading everywhere between January 13th and January 14th, and I've got one of my sources right here from Entertainment Weekly on my Apple News app, and it reads, "One of Disney's most popular animated TV shows is coming back for more. As part of the annual Television Critics Association Winter Press Tour, the company announced Friday that it has struck a new overall deal with Phineas and Ferb co-creator Dan Povenmire that will bring back the hit series for 40 new episodes. The deal also includes a Season 2 renewal for Povenmire's more recent animated series Hamster Gretel, as well as the development of future live-action projects." And during the announcement, Disney-branded television president Io Davis said, "Dan is renowned for his ability to create universally beloved stories and characters with both heart and humor. We couldn't be happier to continue our collaboration with him and bring back the iconic Phineas and Ferb in a big way." And then next it reads here, Phineas and Ferb follows the adventures of the eponymous stepbrothers as they spend their summer vacation coming up with ambitious projects that often defy physics. They also butt heads with their older sister, Candace, who constantly tries to expose their schemes to their parents to little avail. Meanwhile, their pet platypus is secretly a spy foiling the evil plots of a mad scientist. The series originally aired from 2008 to 2015, and they maybe should have corrected that as 2007 because 2007 was when the show aired its first 2 episodes as sneak previews, and 2008 was when it officially premiered, and continued in a series of TV movies. The most recent, Phineas and Ferb the movie, Candace Against the Universe, premiered on Disney Plus in 2020. And lastly, Dan Povenmire himself says, "It has been the greatest pleasure of my career to see how an entire generation of kids and parents have embraced the characters and the humor of Phineas and Ferb. I'm eagerly looking forward to diving back into the show for them and for a whole new generation." And then in another article coming from Gizmodo, it reads, "Revealed during the Television Critics Association Winter Tour earlier in the week, Disney gave a 40-episode order for a sequel series split up across 2 seasons. At the moment, original series co-creator Dan Povenmire is heading up the new series, and talks are reportedly underway to lock in fellow co-creator Jeff Swampy Marsh. On social media, voice actors Vincent Martella, the voice of Phineas, and Dee Bradley Baker, the voice of Perry the Platypus, confirmed their involvement with the revival. So basically right now, only Dan Povenmire, Vincent Martella, and Dee Bradley Baker have been confirmed to be on board with this, because Swampy is currently working on his own solo project, which is the Disney Junior show Hey AJ, in his Venice studio, and we'll just have to wait and see if Swampy is going to be asked to join in with the revival. So that's basically what it all says, and regarding the reactions from Phineas and Ferb and Dan Povenmire fans, I've been seeing a wide variety of reactions. Of course, some are positive, saying their childhood has returned, while some are either mostly mixed or a bit skeptical with this idea, considering how, even though we got the Candace Against the Universe movie in 2020, the 2015 finale episode Last Day of Summer wrapped the original summer perfectly for the main cast, and are even demanding more Milo Murphy's Law at the same time. This is kind of like the same situation as the Toy Story 4 scenario, like back when the trailers were being released between 2018 and 2019, where some of the reactions to that movie were pretty negative for the fact that Pixar made another Toy Story movie after Toy Story 3 gave out what was once considered to be not a great ending, but the perfect way to end the previous trilogy, with Andy leaving for college and the toys being at Bonnie's house. But what are my thoughts? Honestly, while I do have some concerns, I'd be pretty much down for it, because even after the show originally ended, seeing the boys up to something new always brings a smile to me, and there are some things I'd love to see that were not really done before, like that Meet Me in St. Louis episode that was teased at the end of Meepless in Seattle, but never made it in, and even that one episode that was specifically about Phineas and the Ferb tones going on tour. And no, Flop Stars doesn't count. Plus, I'd especially love to see them doing the rest of the Star Wars original trilogy with The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, and maybe even an episode where all of the main characters become superheroes. In fact, I'm already trying to develop some fan fiction comics about it, including a graphic novel sequel to Mission Marvel. Plus, I've only seen that with the Beak, and Baljeet becoming a Hulk, and Perry in a super suit, and Buford becoming Bear Boy, and also Candace during part of that one song You're Going Down from Roller Coaster the Musical. And I never saw Isabella getting that treatment as well, which is why I've been doing an insane number of fan art with that idea for her. If you found my secondary Instagram page and even my DeviantArt page, I also hope it gives them the opportunity to make Django one of the main kids in certain episodes more than what he previously got, and even give him some bonding time with Jenny as his sister, because that's something I never got very much of in the original run, and that's also why I'm including this headcanon in my fanfictions. So that's basically what I'm hoping to see in these new episodes. As for my concerns, I'm wondering how they're going to be able to follow up the original run with this revival. Are they going to make it a direct sequel to Last Day of Summer where the kids are going to be in school? Or are they going to have it set 1 year later where it's going to be a whole new summer and the characters are going to have aged up so that it doesn't become too much like The Simpsons? Because I don't think they would redo the original summer, as I may have seen on some other news sources, like turn back the clock on 104 days of summer vacation, because that would make it too confusing and even break the entire logic of the original summer. Like, Dan and Swampy embraced the original summer that they wrote. I don't think they would ever retcon what previously happened, especially since many of the show's previous events were even shown and mentioned in the Candace Against the Universe movie years after it originally ended. Because keep in mind, one of the articles that I've read from Gizmodo said sequel series. So I'm assuming that it's going to be set sometime after the original show, maybe even at the same time as Milo Murphy's Law, as that one took place directly after Last Day of Summer, but from a different part of Danville. That's at least what I'm hoping for, because this is a case where the revival is kinda unnecessary, but not unwelcome, according to a friend of mine on Twitter who is also part of the Dwampy community. Like, if they're able to deliver the same quality of writing and comedy like the original run did, then I'd welcome the new episodes, as long as they've got many of the original cast and crew on board and it's set some time after the original summer, and they stay true to how the characters are written. I'll be down to see what happens here. Maybe some things outside of the setting will change, where David Arrigo Jr. will voice Ferb instead of Thomas Sangster, and some of the animation could be done by Snipple, like in Candace Against the Universe and Hamster and Gretel, and that might turn off some people since Snipple hasn't had a whole lot of experience with animating a Dan Povenmire project. But I still hope that what I'm expecting turns out to be true. Like, it's not going to be the same case as the Animaniacs reboot, where they got a new crew working on it instead of Tom Ruger and the original writing team, and they only really brought back the Warners and Pinky and the Brain as the big segments, even though that reboot is still good. And then, oh god, I just realized that when they show a first look at these new episodes, I fear that it's just going to be a whole bunch of complaints about how the animation is garbage if Snipple is part of it. No offense to them, but even if I do have some slight nitpicks about the animation in Candace Against the Universe and Hamster and Gretel, I feel this derogatory complaint is going to get pretty tiring for me, though I do partially understand that complaint when looking at the animation in the Loud House movie. I honestly care more about the quality of the writing, the humor, and the characters, unless it's equally bad, like in some of the really, really bad animated films I've seen, like Norm of the North, Food Fight, or Ice Age 6. Another question that I have about this is, where is this Phineas and Ferb revival gonna be? Is it gonna be airing on Disney Channel like the original show? Or is it gonna stream on Disney Plus like the Candace movie? Or is it gonna be on both? That's what I want to know, because I've seen some news articles saying that it's going to be Disney Channel, it's going to be Disney Plus, or it's going to be even both, and all that sort of thing. It could go any way possible, and I'm expecting these new episodes to come between 2024 and 2025 because, it took 1.5 years since Candace Against the Universe's announcement for the movie to be released, and then it took about 2 years for Hamster and Gretel to air after that show was announced. So it could go the same way for this revival in particular. Who knows? And lastly, I'm wondering if, because of this revival news, the show is going to get a complete original series set on DVD or Blu-ray like Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers or The Proud Family when they got rebooted for Disney+. I'm talking about all 4 seasons of the 2007 to 2015 run, all in widescreen, plus all the specials in their full length, all the Take 2 with Phineas and Ferb shorts, both of the movies with Candace Against the Universe having its first physical media release, and maybe even some bonus features such as the original pitch from the Fast and the Phineas DVD. This is what I would love to see too, because I would love to have the whole original run and the recent movie in my hands so that I don't need to use Disney Plus to watch all of it. And since Shout Factory is not renewing any more prints of the Gravity Falls set, which is why I'm lucky to have the DVD version of the collector's edition recently, maybe either they or Disney themselves can put it out on either DVD or Blu-ray or even both formats. But with everything I've said here, I wish Dan, maybe Swampy, and the rest of the cast and crew the best of luck on this revival, and we'll see how things go for new Phineas and Ferb. As for Hamster and Gretel, not only did it get renewed for Season 2, but there's also going to be more Season 1 episodes beginning next month. But first, I'm going to get the new Season 1 episodes out of the way, which includes their episode titles and synopsis. And these ones are episodes 14 to 17 of the show, which will be airing every Saturday in February at 9:30 a.m. Eastern on Disney Channel. I've got my source right here on the Disney Beat on Twitter, so I'm going to read out all of them. So on Saturday, February 4th, Disney is going to air Hamnesia. Hamster gets amnesia after a supervillain fight. Romancing the Scone. Gretel and Nordle encounter a strange and powerful scone, and that's Nordle from A Mammoth Problem. On Saturday, February 11th, they'll be airing For Whom the Bell Trolls. A social media influencer threatens to destroy Hamster and Gretel's reputation. Hence the troll pun in the title parody of For Whom the Bell Tolls, because I can assume the villain in this episode is an internet troll. An art house divided. Things go terribly wrong at a movie premiere. On February 18th we've got The Litigator versus the Luchador. Carolina's sister comes to visit and Kevin and Gretel infiltrate a wrestling match. And this is going to be the return of the Luchador, the villain from Recipe for Disaster. Strawberry Fest Forever. Carolina and Gretel attend a festival that takes Carolina by surprise. And judging by that one track on the soundtrack album, the Strawberry Festival song is definitely going to be in this episode. And finally, on February 25th we have Micromanager. Kevin gets his first job at a burger joint. Though the title sounds like the micromanagers from the Lego movie, honestly. The Bottle Episode. Fred is put to the test when she encounters a sinister shopkeeper. Also next month, episode 15 will also drop early on Wednesday, February 8th on Disney Plus in the US, along with episodes 11 to 14 before it airs. But going on to the Season 2 announcement, I knew since the time I talked about the San Diego Comic-Con panel for Hamster and Gretel that the show would be renewed for another season, because since it premiered, it's been a decent hit in the ratings. Maybe not really as big as stuff like Amphibia or The Owl House, but it's still doing pretty fine on Disney Channel, Disney XD, and Disney Plus. and Dan himself was willing to put together a story with the episodes so far, including the UFO scenario in UFO, and he said that if it does get a season 3, then he might do a crossover episode with one or both of his other shows, so that's something I look forward to seeing for the rest of the show. I also hope this gives Snipple the opportunity to really find their groove in terms of how they animate the episodes, because while I didn't think their animation was all that bad in this show, there are certain times, especially in episode 1, where it can feel a bit rushed and flash-like. A big reason why I think Synergy would do the best job at animating this show, just like Phineas and Milo. It could give Snipple a chance to make their Hamster and Gretel episodes look even better. That's at least what I'm hoping for. And then we've got what could be the strangest addition to Dan Povenmire's career at Disney, his live-action output. Now, when I came across this subject, it was just crazy to me. Like, I don't think I've really seen Dan work on much live-action stuff outside of animation, maybe except for his popularity on TikTok, because this isn't the first time he's ever worked on live-action projects. He's also been part of movies like Psycho Cop 2, Never on Tuesday, and Going Overboard, which was Adam Sandler's first film role, and he also got to use Dr. Doofenshmirtz in an episode of Shark Tank. But right now, I don't know for sure what Dan is going to be doing for live-action shows or movies. Like, are the shows going to be sitcoms like Friends or The Big Bang Theory? Or are they going to be sci-fi shows like Star Trek or The Orville? Because I've seen his cartoon shows taking on those genres. Right now, I have no clue yet, but the only thing I can say about Dan going into this medium is, it's gonna get bizarre. So that's pretty much the news regarding Dan Povenmire and his new deal with Disney, and I wish Dan and his team the best of luck with all this new stuff, and we'll see what happens with all of it, including the live-action shows. And now the last thing I need to say is, now that Hamster and Gretel is getting a season 2 and Phineas and Ferb is coming back for more episodes, Milo Murphy's Law, your turn. And that's all I need to talk about this week, so thank you guys so much for listening to this special episode of the Danville Discussion. As for me, you can find me on my Facebook page at Real Caleb Doerksen, on my Twitter, Tumblr, and TikTok pages at Caleb Doerksen2 with the number 2, on my alternate Twitter page at Caleb the PNF Guy, on my Instagram pages at Caleb.Doerksen for my main page or at Caleb Flynn Fletcher for my alternate page, and on my DeviantArt page at Caleb Doerksen20. You can also find me on Discord by typing the username Caleb Doerksen, that's 2 words, and then the code number 4600. And if you go to the invite link in the description below, you'll also be invited to my Discord server so that you can talk with me about anything, including this podcast or my other content. You can also find me on YouTube. All you have to do is just search for Caleb Doerksen and look for the icon of me as a soldier. And if you want to support my work and get some fantastic rewards all at once, including getting access to my content before anyone else, whether it be my videos, my podcast episodes, or anything, then you can become a patron at patreon.com/Caleb Doerksen. I greatly appreciate your support over there. As for this podcast, we are available to listen on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Audible, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and you can also find us on Anchor by using your Apple or Android device or going on the web at anchor.fm/Caleb-Doerksen, and it'll take you directly to the Danville Discussion page. If you listen to this show on Apple Podcasts or any other podcast service, then can you just go rate and review this podcast? That would be much appreciated as long as you're being respectful. And if you were listening to this podcast as a video on YouTube, then go and mash that like button on our video and leave us a little comment with your thoughts on all this news. You can also share your feedback or ask some questions by sending us an email at danvillediscussion@gmail.com with the words "The Danville Discussion News" in the subject line. Join us next time, and I'm going to jump into episode 7 of Phineas and Ferb, which is actually a full half-hour episode and not just 2 segments, and this one is called It's About Time. Tune in next time for the latest episode of the Danville Discussion and all things related to Phineas and Ferb and beyond. And with all that said, thank you so much for listening to this, and until next time, this is Caleb, over and out. This podcast was created strictly and only for entertainment and information purposes. It is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company, Disney Television Animation, or their affiliates. All and any names, images, clips, sounds, or other items related to Phineas and Ferb, Milo Murphy's Law, Hamster and Gretel, and other Disney properties are trademarks and or copyrights of their respective holders. All original content from this podcast is the intellectual property of the Danville Discussion and the host or hosts running the podcast unless otherwise noted.
Baby, we're back.